Welcome to the second module in our Embedding Native Values into Your Business program, identifying the most valuable sustainable procurement approaches for your business. Let's review the learning outcomes for today's session so you know what to expect and what we'll be focusing on. By the end of our time today, you'll understand why engaging others in the development of your sustainability program is key to its long-term success. You'll also be able to identify practical ways to bring sustainable procurement into your business in a way that aligns with your specific needs, goals, and opportunities. And finally, you'll begin to envision how larger organizations, especially those who might be your customers, are integrating sustainability into their procurement practices and how that could create new pathways for growth and partnerships for your business. So let's begin by revisiting your Supplier Sustainability Code of Conduct worksheet. Please pause this video and take a moment to pull up the worksheet so you have it ready in front of you. Once you're set, press play and we'll get started. Hopefully you had a chance to think about who might be helpful to include in the continued development of your Supplier Sustainability Code of Conduct back in step 4. Now imagine this. What if you implemented that Code of Conduct worksheet today, like right now? Would it be well received by your suppliers? Why or why not? Take a moment to pause this video and reflect on your answer. Jot down a few thoughts before continuing. Okay, before we move on, let's highlight one of the key takeaways. Engaging others early in your efforts is critical. Whether it's your internal team, your suppliers, or external partners, involving people from the start builds buy-in, sparks collaboration, and often uncovers valuable ideas or resources you might not have considered on your own. And here's the thing. Engaging others isn't just important when creating a supplier sustainability code of conduct. It's essential throughout every stage of implementing sustainability and sustainable procurement in your business. Let's take a closer look at why that matters. As it turns out, engaging others isn't just a one-time step. It's a foundational practice for every part of implementing sustainability and sustainable procurement in your business. Why? Because it helps create a collaborative, transparent community of practice, both within your team and with your suppliers. When you engage others early, you're more likely to identify helpful resources or expertise you might not have known about. You also get a clear understanding of the capacity available to actually carry out the work. Plus, it's a great way to surface any training needs or uncover potential resistance before it becomes a roadblock. Ultimately, this kind of engagement brings towards something powerful, a collective commitment to sustainability and sustainable procurement, and that shared commitment is what helps these efforts stick and grow over time. So before we move on from your Supplier Sustainability Code of Conduct, let's talk about how you might implement it once you're finished and it's been approved by the people you've engaged with. You are likely already thinking about your suppliers and their varying reactions to your new Supplier Sustainability Code of Conduct. Some might be excited to work with you on its development and potentially adopt it for their own business. However, some might have a very different reaction of uncertainty, maybe even fear about how to meet your expectations. Signal, prefer, require is a common approach that businesses take to implement sustainability strategies, like a Supplier Sustainability Code of Conduct, while being mindful of the varying abilities their suppliers might have in meeting your new requirements. Essentially, signal, prefer, require describes a gradual process of implementation, and it can be a useful approach on not just new sustainability requirements, but also any new requirement your business might ask of your suppliers. Signal refers to communicating the new requirement. That might be through an email, for example. Prefer refers to providing suppliers with extra points or rewards when they meet the new requirement, whether that's in a new bid or as part of monitoring their performance as an existing supplier. Require is when suppliers' products or services are expected to meet the new requirement and eventually get disqualified when they do not. The goal is to allow suppliers time to ramp up on your requirements without impacting your procurement process and/or deliveries along the way. This approach also helps to maintain positive relationships and ultimately helps to accelerate market transformation towards more sustainable suppliers, goods, and services. So let's take a look at how signal, prefer, require would be used to implement your supplier sustainability code of conduct. At the signal stage, you would publish it to your website, notify suppliers of its release, and explain its importance. At the prefer stage, you would include reference to your code of conduct in your contracts. At the require stage, you would request suppliers to sign off on your code to qualify as a supplier. Periodically audit existing suppliers to ensure they are adhering to it. Again, this approach ultimately eases your suppliers into these new code of conduct requirements, no matter where they are in their sustainability journey. Let's now take a minute to hear more about our speakers' experiences and observations of businesses that integrate sustainability into their procurement by way of engaging others and setting expectations both internally and externally. For this video, we'll be reconnecting with Sean from Multnomah County and Shayna from the state of Washington.
I think we're very lucky in Multnomah County that at least 25% of the scoring has to be dedicated to this, what we call responsible business practices, always saying that the better value is asking the questions. And that even counts for bids. If you didn't know, bids and RFPs are different. Bids are like yes or no questions. But in bids, there's so much room for opportunity to write the questions in a way that you can score really well. You can write questions very easily that are, what are you doing for, responsible business practices, and ask, like, are you taking care of your employees? Are you doing X? Do you use EPA Safer Choice products? Do you buy EP certified gold products? And the more that they check in a bid, then they'd get more of the points. And those are yes/no questions. I always run into this with procurement analysts. They're like, yeah, but that's sustainability. We can't ask it in a bid. And I'm like, but you can. It's a yes or no question. Yes, are you doing this? No, are you not doing this? And another one of my favorite questions to ask in a bid situation is do you have a sustainability policy, or are you willing to write one throughout the life of the contract if awarded? If you say yes, then you get the 5% for this question.
I was just at a hospital and I was so impressed. All compostable products, and it's a green certified hospital. And I was like, everything from the straws to the trays. Man, if we could do that, that would drive the market for these compostable products. Government purchasing behavior can drive change in that way by the way we choose to purchase. And I'm really glad to see that some folks like the hospital are doing that, but we need more governments to do that.
I see successes in our supplier code of conduct, and what it looks like is that a business is sustainable, a business is, ethical, a business is following all the guidelines of not only just tolerating people, but also accepting, and they're open to doing business in a way that will benefit the moment and the future.
Our speakers called out a number of ways in which either their organizations or other organizations have done a good job in integrating sustainability into their procurement. You might have heard them mention some of these approaches that we talked about in our last session. For example, Sean mentioned policies and including sustainability questions in bids or RFPs. Let's continue to deep dive a bit more on these, starting with the activities that might be most applicable to all businesses, including small businesses, and then taking a look at some that might be more appropriate for large procurement teams and the benefits they might bring to your businesses. And that is by understanding sustainable procurement approaches for all businesses. Starting with eco-labels, sometimes called sustainability labels, these are by far the easiest way for any size business to integrate sustainability into its purchasing. An eco-label is a certification label for a product or service environmental performance. Depending on the eco-label, environmental performance can mean less toxins in the product, lower energy usage, and in some cases, such as fair trade, extending beyond environmental criteria and into ensuring fair labor and equal opportunity. Eco-labels are available for just about anything you might buy for your business. Third-party certified eco-labels meaning those where an independent organization verifies a manufacturer's compliance to the eco-label standard, are a very powerful way to ensure that what you're buying is actually more sustainable than other products. If you buy from distributors, be sure to ask them about the eco-labels they offer if it's not obvious. And if you sell products, you might also consider obtaining an appropriate eco-label certification for your products to appeal to purchasers looking to grow their own sustainable procurement practices. Now let's explore an example of the positive impact that purchasing eco-label products can have. Salmon Safe is a third-party certification that helps protect water quality and restore healthy habitats for salmon and other wildlife. By choosing Salmon Safe certified products like certain foods, construction materials, or landscape services, you're actively supporting cleaner rivers, reduced water pollution, and the protection of ecosystems that are critical for salmon and other species to thrive. You've also encouraged better land and water management practices and supporting businesses that are working in partnership with local communities and tribes to conserve natural resources. This is just one example of how your purchasing decisions can contribute to real, measurable environmental benefits. Before we move on to the next example, here's a quick tip. One easy way to ensure you're selecting a third-party verified eco-label is to find eco-labels for the products you buy using the US EPA's recommended eco-labels website. All eco-labels on this website have been vetted by the US EPA as a third-party verified and can be considered credible. We'll actually be giving you some time to explore this website later on. Let's take a look at an example. If your business needs to purchase paint for an office, storefront, or workspace, the US EPA highlights several eco-labels for interior latex paints. These third-party certifications help ensure the paint has low level of harmful chemicals like low volatile organic chemicals, either restricted or no heavy metals, carcinogens, or reproductive toxins, while still meeting durability and performance benchmarks. It's an easy way to make a healthier, more sustainable choice for your space. Our next sustainable procurement approach or activity that's applicable to any size business is the use of an online sustainable procurement product search engine. There are at least two types of sustainability search engines that we've seen in the market. The first is offered by big online brands and distributors where you can filter by the desired sustainability criteria. For example, Staples.com and Amazon.com offer socially responsible purchasing filters similar to the one shown here. The challenge here again can be greenwashing, since unlike US EPA's website, these sites may not necessarily be filtering for third-party verified eco-labels, so you may need to do a bit more homework on what they present. A second type of sustainable product search engine is an online service that provides information on more sustainable products and then attempts to connect you to the realtors and distributors that sell those products. Similar to the big brand product filters, these services include products with eco-labels that aren't third-party certified. However, they do indicate when an eco-label is present. Our third and final sustainable procurement approach or activity that's applicable to any size business is the practice of integrating sustainability specifications into the bidding process or your request for proposals. This is an especially helpful practice for service contracts where you are not responsible for purchasing the products used in delivering that service. For example, a cleaning service contract might include a specification to use only third-party certified eco-labeled cleaning products. The great part about this approach is that it can be applied to just about any type of service that you purchase, and it can help you decide which service contractor to select as you consider other factors such as their cost and reputation. The one thing to keep in mind is that you don't want to over-specify, especially in situations when you're asking the service provider to innovate new solutions to sustainability challenges. For example, you might want to reduce packaging waste and costs for your local deliveries. Rather than providing prospective solutions for that in your RFP, invite suppliers to come up with their own solutions that work for them. Maybe reusable packaging, for example. The EPA website that we visited earlier for eco-labels also includes sample sustainability specifications known as model contract language for the featured eco-labels. You can leverage this language by clicking View Model Contract Language for the eco-labels you wish to include in your service bids, RFPs, and contracts. For example, this is one for greener office furniture. As a part of this session, you should now have access to SPLC's Purchasing Recommendations for Office Supplies guidance document. This resource provides recommended eco-labels and model contract language for commonly purchased office supplies like copy paper, cleaning supplies, computers, and a lot more. Contact the Northwest Native Chamber for any issues finding this resource. Now let's walk you through a hands-on activity for planning the adoption of eco-labels that might be appropriate for your business. Now that we've covered some ways in which you can integrate sustainable procurement into your business, we're going to give you some time to explore the tools that help you do this and start to make a plan to move forward with purchasing products that are less toxic, more energy efficient, or might have other sustainability attributes that are important to you. You can do this by using the Choosing More Sustainable Products for Your Business worksheet. If you haven't reviewed it yet, no worries. It's simple and designed to guide you step by step. Please pause this video and take a moment to pull up the worksheet so you have it ready in front of you. Once you have the worksheet in front of you, we'll begin with steps 1 through 3. The first step will be to check the types of products you buy for your business. Next, you will open and use the US EPA's Recommended Specifications and Ecolabels website to find ecolabels for your products. The link to the website can be found on your worksheet as well as here on the slide. And once you have that website pulled up, complete step 3 by writing down whether you currently use, would consider using, or are committed to using that eco-label moving forward. When you're ready, go ahead and pause this video to complete steps 1 through 3 and proceed to the next slide when you're finished. Great work. Let's take a moment for some self-reflection. Take a few minutes to ask yourself, which products do you purchase regularly for your business that could have environmental or health impacts? Have you already made changes in the past to buy more sustainable or safer products? What led you to do that? Were there any eco-labels from today's worksheet or examples that stood out to you? Which ones and why? What would motivate you to choose eco-labeled products going forward? For example, cost saving, client preferences, health, values? Pause here to reflect and/or jot down your thoughts. Press play when you're ready, and then we'll wrap up this worksheet with a quick look at next steps. Thank you for taking the time to reflect. So before the next module, please finish up the worksheet by doing step 4, jotting down next steps to transition from your current products to eco-labeled products. And then step 5, noting any challenges you might have along the way and thinking about how you might get past those challenges. We'll be circling back on your responses to these steps in the next module. Speaking of challenges, let's now shift a bit by going back to our guest speakers and listening to some of the challenges they've seen Native-owned sustainable businesses face, not just with adopting eco-labels, but in general. They'll also be sharing opportunities for how your business might overcome these challenges if you come across them.
In my experience at the county, we're really open to seeing how people want to run their businesses. And a lot of it has been human services, which are really critical to helping the people that are facing the most disparities, but in a way that works for them, for individuals right now in a program. If we're contracting with someone or any business, and it could be a Native business, but especially if it's a Native business, to work with them on what should the obligations of this contract be to meet not only our outcomes, which are like, services so that people can live or we get widget A, but in a way that's going to be beneficial for everyone in the future. And knowing that if we're going to do anything well in this world, we're going to make mistakes. So don't stop a program or a contract just because a mistake happened, but look at it and then give them supports so that it does work, so that we can figure out how to make it work.
I feel like the biggest barrier that Native businesses have is their network. And I've learned this as I've gotten outside of my community. So my first legal job, professional job, was in DC. And so I literally kind of went to my little insular community, from that to Washington, DC, at a huge agency where there were no other Native people. I had to go seek them out, and I sought them out, and I created a little organization so I could have my support network there. As Native people, we know each other, but we don't really branch out. And I feel like this hurts a lot of our minority communities. And it's not that you have to, embrace the other communities, but we need to network with each other.
One of the challenges in procurement has been sort of navigating the politics and making sure we're not stepping on toes. There can be people they want your business, and so they're investing time to build relationships with you. But then maybe there's another product that's actually a better fit, and so it's just there's a bit of a dance that you have to play. In the beginnings, you might not have access to buy direct, and then you get big enough or successful enough, and then suddenly that door gets opened. And knowing how to advocate for yourself. Literally today, I was on a phone call where we are trying to buy direct for a product, and they're like, sure, but buy it through this person. And it's like, that's the whole point of why we're having the conversation, is I don't want to buy it through them anymore, because we want our homes to be as affordable as possible. We're increasing the cost of a home because it's higher quality. And so it is a big deal of trying to find the product at a good price. And at the same time, there's also varying degrees of ethics in the manufacturers that we talk to. And some of them are very committed to sustainability. Some are committed to sustainability, but from more of a profit mindset. Some are working with tribes to source their wood and creating partnerships there. Some are prioritizing sustainably harvested, certified wood. So there's a lot of variables to think about and look at, and then and then the story on how do we translate that into that information to the customer so that they know what they're buying, and what parts of that will they care about.
Again, going with buying local, tribes can support their own entrepreneurs and help them not only close that generational wealth gap, but also create a local and a sustainable alternative.
Now that you have some ideas for how to integrate sustainability into your business, and you understand a few of the challenges and opportunities you might encounter along the way, let's talk about a few additional ways that some large businesses go even further with sustainable procurement. Like you, these businesses are trying to leverage their buying power for the good of our environment, people, and all of our relations, but in ways that scale across hundreds and even thousands of their suppliers. Please know that we're not suggesting that you adopt these practices for your own business and related purchasing. However, we do want to expose you to these approaches, since in some cases, they might represent an opportunity for your business to grow as a supplier to such large businesses, and we'll point out those opportunities along the way. The first example of a sustainable procurement activity that some large businesses pursue is supplier sustainability reporting and disclosure. This is when a large business sends a survey or questionnaire asking their suppliers to report on their sustainability performance and progress. Businesses tailor their questions based on a variety of factors, with many including questions about greenhouse gas emissions, mitigation, health and human safety of its employees, and the supplier's own sustainable procurement practices. The whole idea behind supplier sustainability disclosure is that by asking for this information, suppliers will be driven to meet their customers' sustainability expectations by way of a competitive pressure and, in some cases, regulatory requirements. While this practice involves a notable investment for the large businesses that pursue it, those that have report benefits such as risk reduction, for example, a reduced risk of child labor in a factory making their products, increased supplier collaboration, and operational efficiencies. The largest challenge these businesses face as they engage with their suppliers on this activity is missing or misleading data. Similar to implementing a supplier sustainable code of conduct, this can be addressed through third-party validation after the program has been running a few years. One final interesting note on sustainability reporting and disclosure is that over the last several years, it has started to shift from becoming a voluntary approach to regulatory requirement or law in certain parts of the world. For example, the EU's Corporate Social Responsibility Directive, or CSRD, requires large businesses to report on their efforts to address climate change, pollution, diversity, and more. This regulation is currently in its implementation phase for many big brands that operate in Europe, including many that are headquartered in the US. And more locally, the state of California has mandated that large companies disclose their GHG emissions and report on risks and mitigation efforts by 2026. While the US federal government is currently struggling politically on these issues, the SPLC still expects these types of regulations to grow internationally over time. Our next and final sustainable procurement activity that large businesses often pursue is purchasing from certified small and/or diverse suppliers. This practice is actually very common and widespread in U.S. state and local government purchasing in the Pacific Northwest. The goal is primarily to provide local economic prosperity for historically disadvantaged individuals and their communities. In addition, oftentimes the purchasers buying from small and diverse suppliers also benefit with more innovative goods and services and reduced lead times and greenhouse gas emissions. Ironically, one of the biggest challenges when large businesses try to hire small and/or diverse suppliers is that their own procurement system is complicated, to the point where small and/or diverse suppliers just simply don't have the time to figure it all out in order to complete in bids and requests for proposals. To address this, many large purchasers will sponsor training on those systems to level the playing field for all businesses, small and large. During the next module, we will provide more background on this sustainable procurement activity, including more detail on getting certified, in case this is something you'd like to pursue for your business. Okay, so that's it for Module 2. Now, before we close out this module, we have a couple of asks. As mentioned earlier, please finish your Choosing More Sustainable Products worksheet. Please also do a quick scan through the Determining the Right Certification for Your Business worksheet before starting the next module. This worksheet will start to introduce you to the different types of certifications that you might qualify for should you decide to pursue selling to local governments and other businesses seeking to source from businesses like yours. Thanks for viewing Module 2, Identifying the Most Valuable Sustainable Procurement Approaches for Your Business.